Hi, my name is Jennifer Fernandez. I am the early childhood subject matter expert at School Specialty. And I'm here today to offer an idea of something you might be able to do at home to help your child with learning. I was thinking about things I already had at home that can support children's learning. And one of the things I had sitting around was a set of dominoes. I thought this might be something people have. You can see my set is very old and very dusty. We haven't used it for a while, but it is something that sometimes people have around. So if you do have dominoes, there's lots of things that you can do with a set of dominoes. Number one, you can play dominoes. And now there's so many different versions of the game. If you go online, you can research different ways that you can play dominoes and find one that might be best for your family, or change it up so you can play in different ways. And there's so many benefits to playing games with children. It teaches them turn taking. It teaches them some self-regulation. I have to wait till it's my turn. There's some strategy involved and thinking, and lots of math, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in this session. So playing dominoes is the number one thing that you can do with them. But what else can you do with them? So another thing dominoes are great for is just counting, especially with our youngest children. They're tactile. A lot of times the dots are raised or indented, so children can actually feel while they're touching them and counting the dots on the dominoes. So it's a great practice for counting, and you can do this as you're playing dominoes too. Another thing that dominoes help with is something called subitization. Subitization is where I look at a domino, I look at a set of dots, and I know the quantity of those dots just by looking at them. So if I see those dots, I know it's 2, and I don't have to count them. If I see on the other side, I see 3, I didn't have to count those. I just automatically know. So it's kind of this automaticity of recognition of quantity. And it's a skill that we want to develop in children because it'll be very helpful for them as they continue on with their math learning. Now, with our youngest children, they're only going to be able to subitize very low numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3. But as they're able to do that, then you can make it a little bit more challenging and see if they can do 4, 5, and usually 6 is kind of the limit that we want to try for. So subitization with dominoes. Now, another thing dominoes are great for is comparing. You can talk about which domino has more dots, which domino has less dots. And you can actually make it into a game where you divide the dominoes into 2 equal groups. Maybe 2 people are playing. Each person, it's kind of like war, where each person flips a domino over, and then whoever's domino has more gets to keep both dominoes. You can play again, whoever domino has less dots or a fewer amount, a smaller quantity, they get to keep the dominoes. If the dominoes are equal or the same, each person gets to keep their own dominoes. And then whoever has the most at the end wins the game. Not only are we talking about comparing, are we getting children to think about the differences between numbers, what's greater, what's less. We're using that great math language: greater than, less than, more, fewer, greater, equal, same. So there's all kinds of very simplistic things embedded in doing that, but some very important skills that children need to develop. You can also use your domino to create a number sentence. So 2 and 4 makes 6, or is 6. So I'm creating an addition problem, but again, I'm using that math language by putting the 2 sides of my dominoes together. If the domino lends itself to subtraction, like this one, you could say I have 4, but I'm going to take away 2. How many would I have left? You could do math sentences in that way as well. So using dominoes to make math sentences. Something else you can do is get some scratch paper or index cards, sticky notes, write numerals on them, and then start matching the dominoes to the numerals. And then once you've done this, you can take it a step further and almost turn it into kind of a graphing activity. Well, which numeral had more dominoes? Which numeral had less dominoes? Did any of the numerals have the same amount of dominoes? And then start looking at the number combinations that make up each of the numerals. And it really gets children to start to see patterns, the combinations of what numbers can be put together to make another number. So it's very concrete because it's the visual of the dots is there. And again, you can reinforce by actually going back and counting those dots. So it's a great way to really get children to start thinking that way mathematically. Finally, a really fun thing to do with dominoes is make a domino train race. This is where you set the dominoes up in a row, one behind another, and then you push one in order to make the rest of them fall down. This has so many skills embedded in it, in addition to the fact that it's fun for children, it's exciting. But think about what a great way to learn about cause and effect, to learn to do some problem solving and some thinking about how far apart do I need to put the dominoes? Where do I need to place them in order for them all to fall down? And one, it doesn't stop the train from falling. Think about the patience it takes to very carefully place all these dominoes in order for the final event to happen. Think about the perseverance, because if you've ever done this, inevitably your hand hits one, they fall down, you have to start over. But what a great life skill that we want to teach children, perseverance. Think about the creativity, because there's so many different kinds of domino trains that you can make. I actually Googled it because I couldn't remember what like the official name was. And there's an artist that creates these. You could do all kinds of research on the computer about domino train races, but it's almost an art form. You could put them in a line, you can put them in a spiral. So there's lots of creativity that could be, that you could embed into that, or that could happen because of that. Think of the fine motor skills that children are developing by having to carefully place these dominoes in such a way that they don't get knocked down. This is great for building those fine motor muscles of our hands that children will then use for drawing, writing, cutting, painting, etc. So, long story short, dominoes are a worthy investment because you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck with various activities and learning that can occur. If you don't have dominoes at home, School Specialty sells them. I'm sure lots of other places do as well, and I don't think that they're very expensive. So, and worst case scenario, you can actually make your own out of, if you have index cards or some tag board or some heavier paper, you could actually create your own set of dominoes. So I hope this is helpful. I hope it gives you some ideas. You're probably going to think of more things than I told you about today. And that's part of what I hope to do too, is spark a little bit of brainstorming. And thanks for watching.